Hello guys, I just woke up on Sunday. I had my first locals with Mitsurugi yesterday. It was a pre-release event and it was really fun, so I thought today I'd just make a video talking about it and some of my experiences with my first locals playing Mitsurugi, and some of my deck building considerations and experiences. So, and my drink for today is just instant coffee again in my Dracula cup. So let me have a sip. So the pre-release, we got I think it was 5 packs each, and it was a scramble, really. Like I was actually planning on buying a box, but it turned out that the rules were that you could buy a box after the tournament started, and so I didn't get to buy a box before the tournament started, so I wasn't able to obviously buy a box to pull some of the Mitsurugi cards. But my good friend Niklas, he actually pulled one Aramasa and one Habakiri and gave them to me. So that was technically all I needed to be able to play. And I did not pull any of the new Mitsurugi cards in my own pulls. So that was really cool. I had a deck list prepared that was only running one Aramasa and one Habakiri, and playing 3 Pot of Extravagance instead, and I was fully prepared to just play that. But then I got even more, actually. A guy who I before the pre-release I said I would give him all my Kiss Kill stuff, Live Twin and Evil Twin stuff, and he would give me all the Mitsurugi stuff, and he pulled in Habakiri. And then and another guy also pulled a Habakiri and just gave it to me. So I ended up with 3 Habakiri, and then the second Aramasa, I can't actually remember. Oh yeah, the guy, Evil Twin guy, also pulled this. So, and then one final guy, he let me borrow his Aramasa for the tournament. So I ended up actually being able to play 3 Aramasa and 3 Habakiri. And then, of course, also, you know, the Wosu, the Mirror, and the Magatama. So I was able to play with all the new cards. And then, of course, after locals, I had to give back my the third Aramasa to the guy who was borrowing it from. And unfortunately, I didn't even get to buy a booster box because they were sold out. Some other guys as locals bought it while I wasn't really thinking about it. So yeah, but in the end, it didn't turn out to be a huge issue. Fortunately, our locals is pretty big. Like, there was a lot of people, so a lot of packs were being opened, so that was pretty cool. And I think that next week I'll buy a booster box and hope to pull the last Aramasa. I will say that compared to the White Forest pre-releases I've been to, this has been so much nicer, just because all the cards are supers and commons. So just being able to pull these cards is actually really cool, because I absolutely hate waiting for new cards in the mail and just, you know, not being able to play the new deck, because you have to wait for the cards to come, and it takes like 2 weeks or sometimes even more for the cards to come, even with track shipment. It's horrible for us here in Denmark, at least. But yeah, so that was really cool. Still missing the last Aramasa, but I honestly don't really care. I think the deck is fully playable with 2 anyway. So yeah, and otherwise I was basically just running the deck that I showcased in my previous video. with the exception that I was on 40 instead of 41, and the card that I cut was the third enemy controller, so I only played 2 enemy controller. And then I also played a Nibiru. Yeah, I don't know how that adds up to 40, because I don't know if I had a Nibiru in my in my previous video. But I can assure you I counted these cards and it was 40, so I don't know how, but I was playing 40 with the Nibiru. And yeah. So quickly, just going over my matches. Or not quickly, I don't need to do this quickly. I went 3-2, which is, I know, not the best record, not the worst either, but I will say I was just having so much fun. I was so like happily surprised that I was able to play the deck. Like I was so nervous that I wasn't even going to be able to get one Aramasa, one Habrakiri for my Pot of Extravagance build, and I wouldn't be able to play the deck. And when I opened my 5 packs and there was just no Mitsurugi cards, my heart just dropped, because I was like, oh my god, I'm just not gonna be able to play this deck today. But then it all, as you can see, it turned out that I got way more than one of each. So I was just so, like, I had a lot of adrenaline and like just really in a celebratory mood, I guess. So I will say I didn't play that serious. I was just so happy that to be able to play the deck that I maybe did not play too serious. And I know for a fact that one of the matches I lost because I chose to play into a Fuvalos and make the alien luck, just because I really wanted to try to make the alien luck. And I lost because of that, and I don't think it's correct to make the alien luck on the Fuvalos, and I knew at the time that it was not correct, but I just really wanted to try the alien luck and see what happened. And it ended up being pretty close, but my opponent played really well with the cards he had, which was a lot. I think it was like four draws he had of Fuvalas. And so, yeah, maybe I could have won that game if I didn't play into the Fuvalas. But either way, it was just a lot of fun. And then, yeah, so round 1, I went up against Memento, which I think is actually one of the decks, like, not so good matchups. It was the same guy that I played at the remote locals that I talked about in the last video. And he was also playing Memento at that time. And in that match, at that time I won over him. But this time you could see he had practiced a lot more Memento. Like at the remote locals, he was kind of shaky on his combos and stuff like that. You could see that he spent a lot of time thinking, and yeah. But this time he was really sharp and he played really well, in my opinion. You could see he had practiced, I think, and he beat me. And I also did not utilize my interruptions optimally, I think. I think that one thing I forgot is that these small ones can protect your other reptiles from destruction by tributing themselves. And that is actually pretty relevant in the Memento matchup, since a lot of their interaction is destruction. And then I also, I think, did not use my Makatama correctly. I had it set, but the way he won was making the 5k combined creation and activating the second effect of Bone Party, so it had piercing, and then just attacked over all my small Mitsurugis in defense and killed me. And I think I should have saved my Magatama for his combined creation. maybe he would have been able to summon it back anyway, to be honest. But that was at least an error that I made. I also used my Amino Raigeki way too early, I think. So yeah, some mistakes, but overall, I think that the Memento is a hard matchup because basically what I think I've learned about this deck is that you kind of want your opponent to hand trap you. You know, not exactly withdrawal, but all the other hand traps are actually kind of fine and even sometimes good for you, because the more resources they spend trying to stop you, the less they have to be able to play on their own, on their turn. And so our end board is not crazy strong, but we can play it through a lot of hand traps and make that end board. So it is kind of nice if they spend some hand traps, like 1 or 2 hand traps, and so they only start the turn with 4 cards or something like that. But in Memento and his Memento version, he full lost me, which I'll talk about later, but he did not hand trap me otherwise, I think. And so he just had a lot of gas, right? And you know, Memento is like playing a lot of engine, and Memento can just keep going and going and going. And so I think Memento is one of those decks that is actually pretty scary to when they go second against us, because I mean, endboard is not too strong. We don't have that many interruptions, and they, you know, Memento can just keep on and on and on and put the pressure on and on. So I think Memento is one of the harder matchups, and my theoretical plan for the matchup is to make the alien luck, right? Because if we make the alien luck, that is something that can help us our endboard go over the top against some of these decks that doesn't hand trap us and just plan to, you know, outgas us with a lot of engines. Sometimes it's not possible for them to do it if they're under the alien luck. That's the idea. But of course, if he full losses me, I chose not to make the alien log at that point. At least I think that was what happened. I did not end up making the alien log. I actually can't remember why. I'll have to ask him. But the only reason I can think of is because I know he didn't hand trap me. And so I should always be able to make the alien log uninterrupted when I go first, post side deck. But I think that he full lost me, and so I didn't want to make it because I didn't want to give him the draws. And maybe in hindsight, I should have done that anyway, since I know that I was playing against Memento, and I knew that it was really tough for my end board to be able to survive. So maybe I should have just made the alien luck, even under full loss against Memento. But I'll get back to that because, as I told you, there was another matchup where I did choose to make the alien luck under full loss. But anyway, yeah, so I lost against that. I think I misplayed a bit, definitely. But I also think he played really well, and I think that Memento is one of the scarier matchups, since that deck is actually very capable of going second, and has a ton of pushes. And the next match I played against, let me think, what did I play against? I played against oh yeah, I played against Crystron. And so Crystron, he won the die roll. Also last round Memento also won the die roll, which is a bit tough, of course. But we actually have a close match, and this time Crystron won the die roll, and I was actually able to beat him still in game 1. This deck is pretty strong going second, actually. So yeah, I was able to just use Wosu on his on his infinity, just to take it away, and then I was able to do harpies to clean his crystalline trap, and then all he had left was a. No wait, I bait I oh no, never mind. I baited out the infinity with a Book of Eclipse, which he had to Omni. Then I harpies first for harpies to clean his back row, and then he had a Dawn Dragster, and then I just Wusu'd his Dawn Dragster, and that was his last interruption, apart from an Effect Veiler. So when normal Sumasaji effect, he tried to Effect Veiler it, I chained Book of Eclipse, he had to Omni that, and yeah, then the rest is history. And then game 2, I was going first, and I won as well. I don't think I made the alien luck because I think I got hand trapped a bunch, as far as I can remember. Yeah, I think that was what happened. Honestly, I can't remember it super clearly. I just know that I did not make the alien luck, and I think the reason was either I got Fuvolust, or maybe I also got Fuvolust. I remember then, yeah, that's probably what happened, because I think that in the third match, I was so tired of getting Fuvolust in my going first post size game, so I just chose to make the alien luck anyway. Yeah, I think I got Fuvolust as well, so I did not make the alien luck, but I can't remember actually. But anyway, I ended up winning that match 2-0, and then game 3, I played against a really nice guy on branded, and I ended up winning the die roll, and I won game 1. Then game 2, he just flipped deep area. He had draw plus deep area, so it's just, yeah. And like hard draw the deep area. I didn't even hand trap him. But and then game 3, that was the game I went first, and he full lost me, and I chose to make the alien luck anyway. And he actually played around it in a very clever way, and in hindsight, I also did not use my interruptions properly. Basically, there was a point where he drew swarmed my Amino, and I choose to use my purification on that Druid Worm, because the Druid Worm would be able to trade 2 for 1 anyway. It would be able to banish my Amino, and then he would summon it, and then he had Lobelian in the grave, so he can tribute the Druid Worm and get the second Druid Worm effect to send my Futsu, and I just thought that that was too bad if that happened, so I spent my Omni on it. But then he had the talents to take, and initially I wasn't really scared of it because he took my Cosmic Slicer, and I was like, okay, I'll get it back at some point. But then he because then I obviously still had the Amino Raigeki, so I was just waiting to use the Amino, revive it back, and use the Raigeki to kill the Slicer, so it goes in my graveyard and can summon it back. But then he used a branded in red, I think, which banishes, so he was able to use it as a fusion material, and the fusion spell banished the card he used as a material, so the Cosmic Slicer got banished. And that was a quick play, and he had it in hand, so there was not really a way for me to get rid of the Cosmic Slicer before he could be able to use the quick play in that scenario, because I actually did not have the Magatama. So I did not see that coming, branded in red, banishing the monsters used as fusion material, and I probably should have, as he didn't search it, he just hard opened it, so it caught me by surprise, and that was a really cool play, I think. Take the Cosmic Slice and use it as a fusion material and banish it in that way. But of course, if I hadn't negated the Druid Worm, I could have spent my purification on the talents. And I think that talents is one of the only, like, I have my alien luck has been broken up by talents before. I think talents is one of the only cards that can really deal with the alien luck, in terms of non-engine, because oh well, apart from bestials and stuff, but talents, it just takes it, and of course, if you're not able to get it back, then they have disrupted the alien luck. But I think that he could have also just, when he used his Druid Worm, instead of targeting my Aminor, he could have just targeted the Cosmic Slicer, and I would have been forced to Omni it anyway. And then the same sequence of plays. Oh wait, no, my Cosmic Slicer was on the field. Yeah. Okay, so maybe yeah. I think I misplayed. I think I used my Purification too early. And I think as a general lesson I've learned after this local section, I should have waited with my interruptions a bit more. But I was just scared of losing my Amino. But I should not really have been. I think my game plan at that point should just be to hell with Amino, as long as I can have Cosmic Slicer, as long as I can have Food Soup and make the Alien Luck, then I don't need to Regeki the board. Plus, I have a second Amino in my deck anyway, so if I can survive, I can just make the Amino again. I think that should have been my game plan, and maybe I would have won. But either way, it's a bit rough to make the Alien Luck. I think when you give them, I think it was 4 draws, because he used the Fuvelos on my Habake, and that's 1 draw, right, that I really cannot prevent. And then I think that in order to make the Alien Luck, I needed... Yeah, I also did not really play optimally, I think, because I also used the Ritual Spell to summon from deck and giving him another draw, and then 2 draws for the Alien Luck, right? 1 for the Shock Trooper and 1 for the Cosmic Slicer, so maybe that should have only been 3 draws, to be honest. I was also feeling a bit like carefree, I will say. Like again, I was just in a really happy mood, and I was like, sure, take some draws. I want to make the Alien Luck. So maybe not the most competitive mindset. Yeah, so again, I think I almost definitely made misplays in that match. But still, I think my opponent played really well. I think the whole idea with taking the slicer and then using branded in red to banish the slicer was a very, very, very cool play that honestly, I mean, when he hard drew the branded in red, I didn't need to not see him search it, so I didn't really have an opportunity to read it before he activated it. And I always forget what the branded cards do anyway, like the small details. So I think that was a genius play, by the way, so I'm not too mad about losing to that. Of course, I want to say that in that game, I actually had Thrust as well. So I was able to use Thrust and get something since he Fuvelost me. But I didn't have any good targets. My Urgent Ritual hasn't come home yet, and even if I had it, it wouldn't be good because I was able to combo anyway. If I had a good first target, like I literally just said Nadir's Servant and just hoped to survive a turn so I could use it on my next turn. That was what I said with Frost. It was completely... Frost was useless in that game for me because I did not have any targets. And if I had, a target, obviously deep area, if I had deep area against Branded, right, the game would just been over really easily. Even if it wasn't deep area, even if it was like a Daruma, Karma Cannon, or just something, right, I think I might still have won that game because it was really close. And if I had that one extra interruption, that one extra trap card set, maybe I would have actually won. So that's a problem with the side deck, right? That's a deck building issue. And I want to talk about that today also because I think that is one of my main issues right now, is that it's basically the side deck. a bit of the extra deck and then some small things in the main deck. But yeah, so even though it ended up being a close match anyway, I think that if I had had a proper first target, I would probably just have won. Yeah, I think I'll say that if it was deep area, there's not too much Brandon can do about it. But anyway, so I lost, and then I got paired up against Sabadak. That was like a guy who's like a huge Cyberdragon fan, and you know there was new support in the set for Cyberdragons and Cyberdarks, and so he was playing his pet deck, right? And yeah, so it was like a bit of more of a fun matchup because obviously Cyberdragons and Cyberdarks are not too competitive. He drew draw, I kid you not, 5 times, and so I got drawn 3 times in that game. I was still able to win because Cyberdark have a really huge choke point in Chimera, which is an ignition effect, and I have Book of Eclipse, I think all duels, to just book the Chimera when he summoned it, so he couldn't use the effect. So he got pretty lucky with a bunch of draws, and I got pretty lucky with a bunch of eclipses, and so yeah, I ended up winning it. It was a fun matchup. And then finally, round 5, I was playing against Malice, and that was also the guy I played at for the remote locals. And at the time I won, and I was able to win again here. He was only playing with one matcha, so it was pre-release, and you know matcha is a secret. But he was able to get a backup at Ignister and a Wiz, and also the new Omni. So first game I won the die roll and I went first, and it was enough to stop him because that was like one of the matchups I was talking about where he, you know, Malice generally I think has a ton of hand traps, and that's actually sometimes a good thing for my deck, I guess, because I just play a bunch of engine and a ton of starters and stuff, so it's very easy. I wouldn't say very easy, but it's pretty doable for pure Mitsurugi to just play through hand traps and create our board anyway. But so yeah, he had Impulse. No, I think he had try to remember. He had TD Crow, and Magnemite, and an Ash Blossom, I think, something like that. He had 3 hand traps, and yeah, so again, that was one of the cases where even even if he had 3 hand traps, I was still able to set up something, and then he of course only had 3 cards when his turn began, and that's much more feasible to deal with. And so game 2, he went first, and I did not draw any Charmies or Lancias. I'm still only playing with one Fubulas, so I'm still waiting for my other Fubulases to get in the mail. But of course, if I don't open any Charmies or Lancias against Malice, it's just really hard to win. But so he set up his really strong board, and I tried to play through it, and I feel like I got pretty far, but it wasn't enough. Then game 3, I started, and he had double Fubulas on my Habakiri summon, or summon from deck. He double Fubulas me, and then he also had a DD Crow, I guess, something like that. He had a pistol or a DD Crow as well. So it was a bit tricky, but I was able to put up the board anyway. I didn't give him any draws after the 2 he got from the double Fuga on Habaki. And then when he played, he did actually he did make me use all my interruptions until he had 1 card in his hand, and I had already used my Amino negate. And that card was a Dormouse, I think, a Dormouse normal summon. No, not a Dormouse normal summon. I think it was a Marcher. It was like an extender. And he no, it wasn't a Marcher because the issue was that he didn't have a second Marcher. So he used his Marcher earlier, and I think I Regeki'd his board at some point or something like that. So anyway, we traded. I was all out of interruptions, and he still had one card in hand, and that card was some kind of starter or extent, I cannot remember. So he was able to play right, but he had already used a lot of his Malice cards, and so initially we both actually thought that he would just kill me here, because I had basically no interruptions left, and he could do a bunch of stuff, right? And Malice, can OTK pretty easily. So, and he spent a lot of time thinking, because, it's also new cards and stuff like that, right? And he couldn't really do it. He was only able to make a Cryptor and attack me for some damage and pass the turn, with like 2 minutes left on the clock or something like that, and no cards in hand, and one of the Malice traps set. So he wasn't able to kill me. I think we talked about it afterwards. It feels like he really should have been able to kill me. And he said that if he had the second match in the deck, he would have been able to. And I fully believe him. I also think maybe he misplayed. Maybe that was the line, because I usually Malice can just kill you if they have going uninterrupted. Or not uninterrupted, but when I'm out of interruptions. But he didn't, and turn came back to me, and he tried to activate the trap, but I had Amino negate since he had no card in hand, and I just some 2 Hapakiris and Amino. I think my Futsu got vanished as well, and so I just went for game with Wosu, 2 Hapakiris, and Amino. And I tributed his I dealt with, I just read his crypto, I think. I can't actually remember. It wasn't even a crypto, I think it was a red ransom actually. So anyway, yeah, that was the matchups. It was super fun playing with the deck. I will say, maybe even though my result wasn't super great, I still just was very happy, because this deck is just so fun to play. Like, and I feel like I learned a lot. So it was a really nice experience. And then afterwards, I actually went down to buy a box of Stampede. I had just gotten some money back, so I was feeling like in a spendy mood, and I opened it with my girlfriend when I got home, and I pulled this QCR Called by the Grave. Oh, she actually pulled all the cool cards. This QCR Called by the Grave alternate art, and then the card I was personally looking for the most, the Nibiru Primal Being alternate art, which I think this is super cool. I know a lot of people seemingly don't really like this alt art, but I think it's way cooler than the rock. So I was just very happy to pull this. And then the Called by the Grave, it's like 60 euros. This is like 40 euros. And then we also pulled this Fallen of Albaz alternate art, which is also pretty cool. Metamorphosis alternate QCR. It's also, and Red Eyes QCR, also pretty cool, but obviously not really playable. And then some engravers. Sadly, I didn't pull, and then also this Rumor Cannon actually, and a Typhon. And that was about it. So overall, maybe not the greatest box, although these 2 alternate arts is like $100 combined, and then this one is like 15 on dollars, euros. This is like 15 euros or something, so it's like still like about what I paid for the box. Not that I plan to sell them. Maybe the Fallen of Elbows, I could sell that. But yeah, otherwise not really a lot of good pulls. Sadly no full velocities. I was hoping to draw. I have them waiting in the mail. I'm just waiting for them to get home, but I was still like, oh, if I can pull some Foveluses, then maybe I could play with more than one next week for locals if they don't come in the mail. So yeah, that was also, and then also this punk QCI actually. Some people might be interested in that. I should probably put that in my binder. Anyway, I'll do that at some other point. But yeah, this Typhon I actually needed, and the rumor cannon, I also have been thinking about that as a thrust target. That is sort of, you know, generic. But yeah, and then these two, I think I'll just replace my Koppai and Nibiru immediately with these artworks because these are super cool. So yeah, so overall a really awesome day at locals. I had a bunch of things I wanted to try out with this build here today. I wanted to try out the basically let me just put this copy in here first. It's a bit confusing with the new artwork. Like it's not as recognizable, but it's just, I think it's pretty cool as well, and also just QCR, right? So yeah, let's put it up here. So different things I wanted to test today is I wanted to taste the Gallant Granite into Nibiru, and obviously wanted to test the Alien Lug. Let me find the planet pollutant. And then a very last minute thing that I just came up with was Silhouette Rabbit. Yeah, so I don't think that playing all of these at the same time is necessarily correct. Although I don't know, but it just feels like it's not. But I was interested in all of them. The Silhouette Rabbit was actually something that I hadn't even considered beforehand. It was just sort of a last minute thing that I wanted to try because I was trying to figure out what to put in my side deck for going first, and I didn't really have any ideas, so I just thought maybe just put an angel statue Ezreal in the side deck and play this Silhouette Rabbit, and so if we go first and get drawled, we can maybe make a statue. I never ended up making it, actually. The times that I got drawled, I just made Bagushka. So, and I think I guess we can start with this. I think that when I think about it, usually when you get drawled, you didn't get to ritual summon, or if you got to ritual summon, then you only have like the one ritual. I feel like. So if you, for example, have a prayers and you activate it in the draw phase to get some searches, you might be able to end up with a ritual monster and a ritual spell before you go into your main. But otherwise, if you don't have draw in the main, it's most likely that you probably don't get to the ritual spell, and then you just basically how to explain it. For example, if you start with Hyperkiri and you summon Saji, right, and Saji searches prayers, and then when you get prayers, you get drawled, right, when after the Saji resolves, and at that point you can chain the prayers to get an extra like an extra level 4 body. So, and then you can summon the Sachi back from the graveyard, so you can search like Aramasa or something like that. Oh, Kusanagi is probably what you would search actually. Yeah, you search Kusanagi, and you summon the Sachi back from grave, and then the draw resolves, so you're locked out of searching. then you can normal summon the Kusanagi and add back the prayers, and then you have 2 level 4 bodies. And so I think that I don't think you end up in a situation where you have like a level 4 body and a ritual monster. Although I don't know. Maybe. Because what I'm trying to get at is that if you underdraw always either have one body, so you can't make an extra deck play anyway, or if you have 2 bodies, it's always 2 level 4s. Then I think that you just make Bagushka all the time anyway over Silhouette Rabbit. So the only scenario I can think of where Silhouette Rabbit might be stronger than Bagushka is specifically in the scenario of draw, is if you have like a level 4 plus a ritual monster on the field. Like if this is what you end on, then it's like you obviously cannot make Bagushka, and so you could make a Silhouette Rabbit instead. But if this ritual monster, of course, is Amino, which is usually the one you search first and try to get to first, then you might not want to link it away, depending on what other stuff you have. If you just have the Amino and you just end on it, and you just use to negate, discard a card, then it's obviously not very good. But if you have a prayers, or you have a purification, then you probably want to end on the Amino rather than, oh well, if you have a prayers, you'd want to link it away so you can summon it back from the graveyard anyway, actually. So yeah, so maybe I should do some test hands at some point and just see how often do you end up with like 2 bodies or something like that, where one of them is a ritual monster and or 2 ritual monsters, I guess, although that does not seem very likely, and the level 4s, because in that scenario I can see Silhouette Rabbit being a pretty good thing to use under draw. It is like a classic tech card to play against draw, right? Most decks that are weak to draw, at least when this card came out, it was popular to play, and the reasoning was, a lot of time was draw. So I'm actually a bit surprised that I haven't even thought of it before yesterday. But at the same time, I think that a lot of time you would probably just make Bakushka anyway. And my theory is that you almost always have 2 level 4s when you get drawn, rather than a level 4 and a ritual monster. That is my theory. I don't know if that's actually correct. And if that's the case, I don't know if Silhouette Rabbit is worth it to play. Of course, you could also play it just to end on it normally. Like, for example, during a normal combo, you can, if you choose not to play around Nibiru, you can have 4 bodies that you can use for link materials and still have the Futsu. So you could make an IP, and then you could also make a Silhouette Rabbit. And that would of course be instead of the Alien Lug, but that is still pretty strong, right? Like IP plus Silhouette Rabbit, that's like 3 interruptions. So that's maybe another reason to play Rabbit. If we maybe find out that the Alien Lug is not worth it, then we could still, pump up our end board when going first, post side deck to something a bit more threatening by making a IP and a Silhouette instead. Of course, it's not really stronger against Fubulas, so I think maybe the Alien Lug is better than IP plus Silhouette Rabbit. Although I don't know actually, because yeah, let's talk about the Alien Lug, because the thing is with Alien Lug is that it's very hit and miss, or very like, it feels like a glass cannon strategy, whereas if it resolves and everything goes well, then you just win the game, right? If they don't have an answer to it. But there is like, so first of all, I think what I noticed today is that maybe it's just because I got Fubula so much, but normally our deck is not really weak to Fubulas, right? But if our post-side deck going first strategy is to make the alien luck, suddenly we just open ourselves up to being weak to Fubulas. Of course, you don't need to make the alien luck, right? So it's not like, oh, if they fool us, you can just choose to do something different, right? So it's not like we open ourselves up to fool us just by putting these cards in our extra deck, right? They're still just in our extra deck. Of course, if we draw the Planet Balloon Virus, that's really bad if we get Fuvulast, because then we just sit with this completely useless card in hand, and we just would feel pressured to just go into the alien luck anyway. And I guess, as we also have talked about, maybe in some matchups it is worth it to make the alien luck even under Fuvilas if you know that they can't deal with it. But it's not. It is pretty resilient because of Futsu, of course, keep bringing them back. But especially something like Bestials can be really hard to deal with, because if they just bestial your Cosmic Slicer in the graveyard or your Shock Trooper, whatever is in the graveyard, right, before you can activate the Planet Pollutant Virus, or the Cosmic Slicer even after you activate the Planet Pollutant Virus, there's not really too many ways to dodge the bestial, because Prayers, of course, is our quick revive from the graveyard, and that is usually our tool to dodge bestials. Because if we have the press set and they try to bestial one our Amino or something like that, we can just quick revive it back. But of course, the press can only revive Mitsurugi monsters. So, and Futsu, of course, can only summon the Slicer back when they summon something, which would be after the bestial is already on the field. So bestials and DD Crow, I feel like we have to be very careful about in terms of the alien luck, because they can't just shotgun in principle, they can't just shotgun a bestial on the Cosmic Slicer, and yeah, that's it. Basically, the whole alien luck, our whole investment is just down the drain. So and yeah, so it's resilient in a lot of senses, but it's also really vulnerable in a lot of other senses, I feel like, because it's also like when you just, if you are on the Fullers and you choose to commit to the alien luck, they can also imperm my effect vela your slicer when you make it. And so if you choose to give them a bunch of draws, of course the chance that they'll have either a Veiler, an Imperm, and Nibiru would probably also be okay, although they would probably not have that in the side deck post-siding against our deck. But so yeah, Veiler, Imperm, any Bestial, a DD Crow, yeah, an Ash, they can also Ash it, right? Also, if they just draw into something like a draw a bit earlier, it's like, yeah, and that happened, right? Like, so I'm still not really sure about the alien luck. I feel like it warps the game into this whole thing where you're playing like Protect the Castle. And when you pass on the alien luck, your whole mission, instead of focusing on how do I use my Mitsurugi interruptions efficiently, I at least became much more tunnel visioned on just keeping Cosmic Slicer on the field, keeping the alien lock alive, and protecting the Cosmic Slicer, instead of, maybe trying to trade efficiently with my Mitsurugi interruptions. So that is probably just a mindset error for me. Like, I need to not value the alien lock that highly, but it is also the case that it's a lot of eggs to put into one basket, right? This is 3 to 4 link materials or bodies, and it can go wrong in a lot of ways. So it is like, it feels like a pretty high investment, especially on the Fuvelas. Although maybe you should just not make this on the Fuvelas properly. So yeah, not feeling super convinced on the alien lock. Also, still feels like something like in the Memento matchup, for example. Feels like the alien lock would have done a lot of work in that matchup, actually. So I don't know. I'll probably choose to still play it for a while, just because I think that being able to make the alien lock is something that is unique to playing pure Mitsurugi. Like, it's something that rational Mitsurugi cannot do. And so I feel like we should try to utilize the strengths of playing a pure reptile build. And one of the strengths is that you can make the alien lock. But in practice, I don't know how viable it is. Because, of course, as I just said, it's not that hard to interrupt. Bystios are going around. DD Crow is something people apparently play now. Valor and Imperm is something that we do not care about, but suddenly when we have the Cosmic Slicer on fields that needs to resolve to search the planet pollutant virus, we suddenly care a lot about Valor and Imperm. Of course, our opponent also needs to know that we are going after the alien lock, and the alien lock is pretty niche and something like that, but we should just assume that our opponent is clever, right? And knows where to use his interruptions, and in that case, they would just hold the Valor and the Imperm for the Cosmic Slicer. And then there's also the fact that it opens us up to being weak to Fulas, and that is like a weird thing to say, because technically we don't need to make the Slicer, the alien lock, right? But it is also the case that we need to do something a bit more powerful post side deck, and like we need to jack our iron board up a bit post side deck, and maybe the correct solution is to find a way to do that without playing into the Charmies, so that we don't open us up for a weakness, because people are probably siding in jump for us, at least against us. I mean, at least they have been yesterday. So that's also why I heard some people say, Fiendsmith Mitsurugi. It could be a thing, right? And I feel like that's kind of the same thing, whereas it's like, obviously the Fiendsmith cards are pretty strong. I think it's actually, a cool idea in principle. I think probably Rigel cards are just better to pair with at that point. But I can see the idea, right? The idea is, if we have the Fiendsmith stuff, we can just go into it with our bodies, and we can just make a stronger import, like a Disarray or a Caesar or something like that, right? And that is pretty strong. So it fixes the error, and I like that idea, because it's the correct. I think that's the correct way to think about Mitsurugi going first post side, is how can we make our import a little bit stronger. But the issue is that when you play Fiendsmith card, you just open yourself up to Fulas, like a lot, right? Like way more than Slicer. And I just don't think that Fullers is a card you can ignore. Like, that card is going to be a 3-of in most people's main deck. And if it's not in the main deck, it's almost certainly in the side deck. And you will almost always have to deal with it when you go first. And since we're not playing any Ash Blossoms, it's just, yeah. So I think maybe the correct thing to do is find some strategy that works, that can boost our end board or our chances of winning when going first per side, but that does not play into Fullers, which the Alien Luck, I think it does, you know. It's only 2 draws, but still, like, I don't think the Alien Luck is worth 2 draws, especially with so many counterplay options. They can also, talents to take the slicer, right? And that's also, can be pretty strong, and, there's a lot of things they can do. It's not a foolproof way of winning, although it is very strong, so I might still play with it. The other thing is, it does not help you on the draw. So that is another thing that is like, well, if you get drawed early, like the biggest problem is by far draw, right? That's the worst thing that can happen to you post side decking when you go first, is that you get drawed. And the Alien Luck just does nothing. Again, you can bring up like opportunity cost, right? Because it's like, well, if you get rolled, you just don't go into the Alien Luck and you just do something else, right? Because they're in the extra deck, so it doesn't really matter too much. This is kind of true, but the Planet Pollutant Virus is obviously terrible in your deck when you get drawn. Does not do anything at all because there's no way to make Alien Luck on the draw. So, if this card was like a Solemn Judgment, if you played like 3 Solemn Judgments in your deck and you just drew one of them, then suddenly you're like, oh sure, all right, I might not, I might have to get a bit lucky and the 33% chance of drawing one of the Solemns, but if I do, it's gonna help me no matter what. It's gonna help me if I get Fullers, it's gonna help me if I get drawed. It will always be a strong card to draw. Of course, you need to draw it, and that's not the case for this Alien Luck, right? So you could argue that that the Alien Luck has some advantages there, but again, like Planet Pollutant Virus is a lot of the times a brick to draw. Like you don't want to draw this card because a lot of times you are not even able to make the Alien Luck. If you get drawed, you can't make it. If you get Fuvet is very questionable to give your opponent 2 draws or 3 draws, right? Because you need to go full combo to do this, or you need to at least use the Habakiri, I think, or yeah, you're probably using your Habakiri no matter what, because that's when they save your Fuvelas for the Habakiri, so you wouldn't know that you got Fuvelas before you use the Habakiri. So you are giving your opponent 3 draws and in total. And is that worth it for the Alien Luck? Probably not. And so, you open yourself. It doesn't have you on the draw. You can't make it on the draw. You probably shouldn't make it on the Fuvelas, depending on the matchup. Maybe you should. And then when you just get hand trapped, right? I mean, I think that this deck's strength, like a pure Mitsurugi strength, is that it plays very well into all of the hand traps. Because we have a lot of ways to get to the same end board. And so it's very hard to stop us from getting to our basic end board. We have, a high floor. We have a low ceiling, but we have a high floor. And so we are pretty good against hand traps. But then, if you get hand trapped, the odds of being able to make the Alien Luck goes down. Like, I had done a lot of test hands against 2 hand traps. I think it was Ash Imperm. One day I just played a ton of test hands against Ash Imperm, and I think I played like 20 test hands or something like that. And so only half of the time that I was able to make the alien luck through an Ash and an Imperm. So, you know, imagine if there's more hand traps, or, you know, it's still like it's not super consistent, even if you just get hand traps a couple of times, because that means if you get hand trapped, it often means that you lose a body, right? Like one hand trap, you know, you try to do Mitsurugi rituals to summon from the deck, and they ash it. It's like you're losing a body, and you need at least 3 bodies apart from Futsu to be able to even do the alien luck. And of course you'd want to do it with 4 bodies, because it's much better to end on the Shock Trooper than it is to end on the Cosmic Slicer. But even if you do just go Shock Trooper into Cosmic Slicer, still 3 bodies that you need. And a lot of the times you don't have 3 bodies if you get hand trapped. So yeah, so I don't really know. I feel like I have been talking about the alien luck for a while now, I guess, but I feel like it sort of opens up for some weaknesses that we didn't have before. You know, suddenly we are now weaker to Fuvulas. Suddenly we are now weaker to, or not just Fuvulas, just Charmies in general, right? Because even something like Perulia, it's still the case that we want to have these bodies on the field, and so normally if you get Perulia'd, you might not need to do your normal summon, right? Like in Pure Mitsurugi, that's a perfectly normal scenario where a lot of the times you can just play around the Perulia so that you don't need to use your normal summon, and sometimes you also don't need to ritual summon from the hand, right? A lot of times you do, but sometimes you can play around it, not even get them as single draw. But of course, that means less bodies on the field. Obviously, if you don't normal summon, you're just missing a body, right? So, and the same with meows, right? If they meows you, suddenly you can play around that. You just don't summon back the Amino from the graveyard, right? You just sequence your ritual summons in such a way that your Amino is just in the grave. You still search with the Amino, but you don't summon it back, right? So they don't get a draw. And yeah, you know, with prayers, you can also, maybe you don't have to summon back the extra body from the graveyard. You know, normally you just summon back a level 4 from the graveyard just to have an extra body. But if they meows you, then you can just not do that and be perfectly fine. That's one of the strengths of the Pure Mitsurugi build. But of course, each time that you choose to forego a body on the field in order to not give them a draw, your odds of being able to actually make the Cosmic Slicer goes down. So in my opinion, it's not even only the Fuvulas, it's also Meows and Perulia that we play into when we try to go for this Cosmic Slicer. And again, I want to reiterate, of course, you can just not make it if you don't get... If you get Charmed, you can just choose to not make the alien luck, right? Because it's in your extra deck. And that is the only thing I think that is keeping me wanting to play this, that the opportunity cost doesn't feel very high. You need to have a brick in your deck, and that sucks. But a lot of the times, if you don't draw the brick, you can just choose not to make the alien luck and you're fine, right? But maybe this card, this Planet Pollutant Virus, needs to be something that actually helps us when we are and helps us against our weak point, right? Because maybe if we can't make the slicer when we get interrupted, when we get charmed, when we get drawled, then what is it really doing for us? Because the reason I see right now for the alien duck is that if we don't get interrupted at all, like nothing happens to us, and so we are looking for a way to make our import a lot stronger when there is no interruptions, then I think the alien luck is really, really strong. and a very good thing to make if we don't get interrupted at all. Even like if we just get like one hand trap or something like that, I think the alien luck is still very strong. And you know, against something like Memento, where you know they maybe don't interrupt you as much, like we are playing against a breaker deck or a very high engine count deck, then it's like you could make an argument that, hey, if for us to be able to have a chance to beat these decks going when they go second against us and they're just full of gas, we need something like the alien luck to be able to do that. So that's the only argument I can think of. I don't think it helps us against a deck who actually plays hand traps against us. Don't think it helps us against a deck that actually plays Charmies against us. And of course, our biggest weakness is draw, which this just does absolutely nothing. It does nothing against draw. It doesn't help us at all against draw. So it's also, it is a bit, maybe a bit ominous that our side deck plan does not help us against draw, right? I mean, I know it's just one card and you can play other cards for going first as well, but it just feels bad siding in a card to your deck that does not help you against the biggest weakness of our deck, right? I feel like every card we side deck going first should be something that helps us on the draw. It's just, I know that this is helping us against another weakness, so that's why I think it might be valid to play it. Like, the other weakness is, hey, we don't get draw, we don't get charmied, but we are in a very bad matchup, right? We're playing against a deck like Mermail going second is super strong, Memento going second is super strong, Branded going second can also be pretty scary. White Forest going second, I don't know too much. I don't think that's too strong, but you know, the idea is just that we have something in that scenario. But I think that's enough about the alien luck. I think I'm just repeating the same thing over and over again. But yeah, so still undecided, but currently leaning towards not playing it, which is a bit sad, I guess. And then, of course, a Gallant Search Nibiru. This is a much less committal thing than like the alien luck, because all you need is just a Nibiru in your deck, and it's not even a bad card, right? Like, this is like one of these things that if we draw the Nibiru and we get drawn, then it's actually pretty nice, right? We have a hand trap in our hand, and it's the only hand trap I'm playing apart from the Chavis, I guess, if you want to call those hand traps. But so most of the time they don't see this coming. Like the one of Nibiru, they don't. It's just stupid, right? It's very hard for them to predict it. Maybe they can predict it because we're playing Mitsurugi and there's some synergies, but still, I think I have had some positive, like compared to the alien luck, I've had some positive experiences with this. I think the fact that when you end up with 3 bodies, you can use your 2 level 4s to make Gallant Granite. You can search Nibiru, and then you can just use your Amino and your Gallant Granite to make an IP. And that is just a nice way to turn 3 bodies into 2 interruptions. Because I think the Nibiru is a valid thing to end on in our hand. Like, I think that actually helps us a bunch. It's like a reset button, and we just need to survive, right? So I think it's pretty cool. Could maybe side deck this going first, just because the one Nibiru is a bit random. If you're playing against a deck that just doesn't care about Nibiru at all. But I feel like most decks can lose to a random Nibiru if they don't play around it. I don't know. I think it might be it's not the worst. I think there's way less omnis in the format, right? At least that you can set up before your 5th summon. And I also think that if your opponent is not really that cognizant, like, about Nibiru. I mean, of course, good players should be, but there's also sometimes when you just cannot play around Nibiru. Um, you know, so I think that this Ghana Granite Search Nibiru is a pretty cool thing, honestly, and I think that obviously also it doesn't work on the draw, right? So you could say, yeah, it's the same thing as the Alien Luck, where you cannot do this on the draw, but apart from the planet, like, the difference between Nibiru and Planet Pollutant Virus is that I feel like if you get drawled with Nibiru in your hand, you're feeling much more safe than if you get drawled with Planet Pollutant Virus in your hand, which just does nothing. So I feel like this playing a Nibiru in our hand, like, just as much as playing any other non-engine that you can, like a hand trap or a quick play spell, it just helps us on the draw. And the Gallant Granite is of course just chilling on our extra deck, so we don't really lose too much by having this thing. Like, it's just one extra deck spot, and we have a bunch of space in our extra deck. And it just makes our import a little better if we have 3 bodies. Like, it's pretty simple, actually. So I feel like maybe something like IP and Gallant, and Silhouette. Like, of course, you make the IP if you just have 2 bodies. You can make Gallant plus IP if you have 3 bodies. Then you could also make Slicer. Like, you can do M-frame plus Slicer, and to make the Alien Luck, and I think maybe that's stronger than IP plus Gallant, right? But it's also, I think the Alien Luck is probably stronger than IP plus Gallant, but it's not like IP plus Gallant is that weak. And you don't have to play a brick like a Planet Pollutant Virus in your deck. Just make Gallant and IP. Maybe that's enough, right? Again, we just have to survive because our plan is to win in the grind game. And the Alien Luck is just it's very all in. That it's like, if it sticks, you win the game immediately. And if it doesn't stick, you just lose, probably. Let's be real, because now you could have had an Nibiru in hand and an IP, but instead of that, you just have nothing because they bestialed your Cosmic Slicer, or they impermed your Cosmic Slicer when they summon it. If you go summon Gallant Granite and you go, okay, search a Nibiru, and they Veiler it or something like that, you're just like, okay, sure, make an IP, right? It's like you still end up with an IP even if they have a Veiler or an Imperm. So yeah, I think maybe the Gallant Granite plus IP is actually a lot more resilient than the Alien Luck against interruptions. Of course, it also doesn't really help us when we get full velocity, right? Because we wouldn't want to make a Gallant Granite on the full velocity, and we probably don't want to make an IP either. So I think I could definitely see, when I look at all these options here, I could see just playing a bunch of trap cards and thrust targets, something like that, in our side deck. And that would, the thrust targets would help us a ton when we get drawled, when we get charmied, when we get hand trapped. And if we play something like Sun Judgment and stuff like that, then that could help us a lot when we maybe, in all cases that we draw them, right? But I guess the situation is that you might not be able to actually find them. But I think that maybe another strategy is, if you play, let's say you played 3 Solemns as Solemn Judgments or something like that, just a strong going first card in your side deck, and you and you then try to go for, and you don't get Fuvolus, right? So if we imagine the scenario where, Cosmic Slicer, or when the Alien Lock is the best, where you just don't get interrupted, you get to go full combo, and you're looking for a way to strengthen your board, right? You could also yeah, I don't know. You could play something like Dugaras, make a Hacker Lizardoise, just to get a bunch of draws and just try to search for a Solemn Judgment to set. I think that's pretty viable actually, but at that point maybe you just want the Alien Look a lot more. I don't know. I think it's really hard for me. I think that we need in our side deck, I think there's two things. We need something that helps us against draw, and I think the best thing there is just strong non-engine, going first non-engine, and of course also what do you say, thrust targets, right? I think that's the best things against draw, thrust targets and strong non-engine. And then I think we also need something that can help us when we are not interrupted, but we are in a very scary matchup against, a strong engine deck. I think that's the two biggest weaknesses, is that our import is not that crazy, and also that we lose to draw. And I think that one type of card that could just solve both those issues, would be something like Solemn Judgments and some thrust targets. The issue is that currently I don't have a lot of space in the side deck. That's the main issue. Like, because I want to play all the Charmies, because I'm going second against these combo decks is not very good either. Like, I haven't gotten all the Charmies, so I chose to play 3 draws instead. But just imagine that those were Charmies, and I have 2 Perulias and a Fuvalas, right? And then, 3 Meows and Lancias. And then also this Duster. And then these 2 cards here, right, as going first cards. So that was the setup. And as you can see, there's just not really a lot of space for going first cards here. Like, even when I get my last Perulia and my 2 Fuvoloses, it's just going to replace these draws. And I would also want to play draw anyway. So even if I took the Fuvoloses and moved them to the main deck to make more space in the side deck, it's still the case that I might just want to have the draws instead of going first cards. I don't know. Maybe I'm just maybe I'm a bit too scared of going second with this deck. Maybe this deck is pretty decent at going second, but I just feel like the Charmies are so good, like in our deck, because if we just have a bunch of cards extra, we can probably break most boards, right? We're pretty strong at going second, and if we can draw like our Book of Eclipse, our Enemy Controller, our Thrust, Talents, something like that, Hobbies, along with all the Mitsurugi powerful going second cards, I think we should be able to break boards. So I think the Charmies are just very strong in this deck, and I don't feel like I would play them over draw, just because I feel like stopping them is not as strong as just getting more draws. But that could be wrong also. Draw is definitely a really good card. But yeah, so even if it's the problem is that here, right, you have already like 12 dedicated cards that you cannot really mess with. Also, don't think it's time to cut the lines yet, because it seems like Malice is still going to be a very, very strong deck. And so it's like And the Prolia is just really good against Mermail, White Forest, Memento, Raichel, like, yeah. So it leaves us with like 3 spots for going first. And I think I could take this Duster and just put it in the main deck and play 41. I think that's fine for now, because I just want to have the Duster in the deck, either main or side. But I think one way to make room is just to go a bit over 40, right? So could also take out the Nibiru, of course, and play the Duster instead. But I think it's fine to just go to 41 for now, just because we are experimenting anyway. Like, it's probably not supposed to have all these cards in the deck anyway, but it's like still only like 3, so it's like we can play like a D barrier and a artifact sanct, and then we can play the plant pollutant virus, something like that, and that's like, that would give us strong going first against Malice. Maybe we don't want the, maybe we don't want the sanct, just because it's only one matchup and we already have 3 launches we can side in. So you could also, I think you could also take something like a Karma Cannon or something as a first target, where it's just like, if the D barrier is not good in the matchup, then you can just first for a Karma Cannon instead, and that would also be probably fine. But of course, D barrier is good in most matchups. It's only really, well, I guess it's not that good against Cash, Tira, and it's not really that good against Horus. Also not that really good against Regenesis. Yeah, so maybe. But the thing is that I think ideally I would want to have some first targets and then 3 Solemn Judgments, right? I think that would be the cool part. But it's like we only really have space for one of the two. We either have some thrust targets or we have some Solemn Judgments. And I think thrust just being so good against draw, I think the thrust target is better than the Solemn Judgments, because thrust is like an amazing card going second for us. We can get Nadir, we can get pre-prep, we can get breakers, and then going first, it's also, you know, not as good as the Solemn Judgment, but still setting at first target is also a pretty strong thing. So I think the current solution for me would be to play some first targets and maybe just still try the alien luck. And that might be like something like a Daruma plus a D-Barrier. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know, to be honest. So that's I guess I've just been yapping completely. That's some of the side deck issues I am having, where I have way too many cards that I want to side in going first or going second. And we could maybe just main the Fuvelas, to be honest, and then have first targets plus judgments in our side deck. But that would of course mean, I think probably the enemy controller would probably have to go in that case. And, you know, that also makes our game 1 going first weaker, because if we draw the Fuvelas, obviously does absolutely nothing for us, except we can maybe normal summon it and make a Pagushka. Like, something like that could be relevant, but otherwise it's not very strong. But maybe that is just what has to happen, is that maybe I need to move these Fuveloses to the main deck, just to be able to fit in these solemns. But then again, I mean, what does that even really do? Because we also now have an enemy controller, which is pretty good, going first, and that would just be a Solemn instead, I guess. That would be pretty strong, right? But then, of course, our game 1 would going first would be a lot weaker. I guess our game 1 going second would be a lot stronger. I think Rulers is a lot stronger than enemy controller going second. So maybe it's still worth it actually. Maybe I just need to find space for the Rulers in the main. But another card I was thinking about. It's just the biggest yapping session right now. Another card I was thinking about is super polymerization, because I personally I love super polymerization, but I have sometimes been a bit wary of playing it because of the discard one, and that might sound weird, but it's like if your deck just sometimes struggle with card advantage, then the discard one for super poly is pretty rough. So I've of course mostly been playing White Forest, and in that game is very in that deck is very Feast of Famine, where if you have if you can play and you have a bunch of cards, you can obviously generate a ton of card advantage. But if you can't really play, if you get stopped early, you just probably don't have a card in your hand to spare to discard for Super Poly. Also, during your opponent's turn, you don't search too much with White Forest, so going first, Super Poly is also not that strong because you really want your LZ add back to be able to make Guardian Camera. But in Mitsurugi, of course, you search a ton when you go first. So you have a bunch of cards that you can discard for Super Poly that you don't really care about. Sometimes you even have so many searches that you don't really know what to search for during your opponent's turn. So, and then also one of my friends, he said that Super Poly is like really good against Malice. So I was like, maybe we could main this Super Poly thing, right? Maybe it could be pretty strong going first and second. And I think with Super Poly, it's always a question of, how does it work against the best deck in the format? That's always the question you have to ask. And it's like, if Malice now ends on a bunch of Cybers monsters, and if they do full combo, they end on the new Cybers Omninegate, which is a dark, and they end on the Firewall Dragon, which is a light Cybers. So you cannot really make Garura or Mud Dragon using those, but you can make some fusion monsters that require, multiple Cybers. So Super Poly does have the potential to be a very strong blowout against Malice if you play that Cyber's Fusion monster in your extra deck. I can't remember what the name is, but yeah. So Super Poly very, very strong against Malice, probably both going first and going second, because when you go first and they play, you can just Super Poly two bodies, right? Like at some point you can just Super Poly two bodies away, and that's like pretty strong, right? It's kind of the same as the card I'm playing right now, of course, which is Book of Eclipse. I feel like it's comparable in the sense that Book of Eclipse, when you go first against Malice, you can kind of use it to just flip a bunch, like 2 or sometimes even 3 monsters face down, and they just, pretty good against Link Climb decks. But then, of course, when you go second against Malice, where Book of Eclipse is almost completely useless, right? Because they're all linked monsters, and you can't flip them down. You might still be able to use it to dodge an Imperm or something, but it's not great against Malice. So I always just set this out and put in Lantius instead. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I still think Book of Eclipse is a very, very strong card, to be honest, in Mitsurugi. So I'm a bit hesitant about cutting it, but you could, in principle, I think, play Super Polymerization instead. Because it is pretty goddamn strong against Malice. And the thing we just have to figure out is what other top contenders are there in the format, and is Super Poly good against those? And it's like against Mitsurugi Raichu, I don't see Super Poly being very strong because Detonator is light, I think. I'm pretty sure Detonator is light. And Amino is of course a dark, so you have like a dark reptile plus a light pyro. I think Detonator is a light pyro, but yeah, so that's obviously not very, like, there's not really great targets there. But then of course they do also often make this safer, like they do make an extra rank 4 a lot of the times. That could also be light or dark, depending, I don't know. So we'll have to figure out how good Super Poly is against Mitsurugi Raichu, because I think that if it's not good against Mitsurugi Raichu at all, then I don't really know if it's worth playing. It's like Super Poly, you want it to be good against the top decks, and if it's not even usable against Mitsurugi Raichu, then I don't think I would play it, because I think Mitsurugi Raichu will be a top deck. But then, of course, against Fiendsmith, it is like also very hit and miss. You do also have the new Duke of Demise, right? So you could probably use it against Fiendsmith if you play that, but then you also have to play a bunch of, like, you have to play the Cyber's extra deck, the Cyber's fusion, the Duke of Demise fusion. You also have to play the Mighty Mud Dragon, so that would probably mean that you can't play the Alien Luck. Probably there's probably not space enough for that. Or you have to cut an idea servant or something, but I'm just not gonna do that. So yeah, I'm still a bit unsure about Super Poly. I think it could be a viable option if it turns out that it's just tier 0 and mouse is the only thing you need to care about. But I think, I don't really see it right now against a Raichu Mitsurugi. Maybe there's something I'm missing, but I'm not currently seeing any good targets for that deck. Of course, it's pretty good against the Blue Eyes, right? But I mean, so is Book of Clips. You just book their the Spirit Dragons. So yeah, I don't really know about that. I also think that if Malice is really big problem, then I think there is the same guy actually also hooked me up on some tech with the Borload something. It's an extra monster that you can send with Slayer or Nadir, and if you send it, you can banish one dark monster on your opponent's side of the field with 2500 attack, more attack. And if you do, you just summon another a specific monster from your extra deck. I can't really remember what it was, but it's like a very random extra deck monster you can just summon. So you of course have to commit to 2 extra deck slots to do it, but I think just making our Nadir 7 stronger could also be a pretty good plan against Malice. Instead of playing a bunch of playing Super Poly. Super Poly is obviously also really strong when you go first, so that could also be a viable thing. Maybe you play Super Poly instead of Judgments in the side deck, so you can side it in against Malice, but you could also just side it in generically going first. I don't really know. I just wanted to say that Super Poly, I think, is also something I'm thinking about, but I think we need to see some tournament results and see what the top decks actually are and how they look. But so yeah, if I'm just going over the non-engine and what we have really of flex spots, because I'm also playing a lot of engine. I have also thought about cutting down on engine, because I basically never break with this deck. Like, you just always have plays, and I think that I mean, even though I personally just love that, I can also see an argument for, hey, maybe if you if you just always have plays, then maybe you're running too many starters. I actually don't really see the trouble with too many starters, but yeah, if you need more non-engine, you might have to do it. Although at that point I'll probably just go over 40, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you have of course the rituals, and the prayers. Of course we want to stay close to 40 just to be able to get that prayers all the time, because our biggest enemy is draw. So we have free, and you know, like a Maximus, right? So it's like that's 20 right there, and then of course you have these three here, and I'm choosing to just keep Pride Prosperity as a non-engine card because I feel like it can. So it's like 23 cards here, like right 3, 6, 9, 10, 3, 6, 9, 10, 23, and then of course I'm missing the last Armasa. So like 24 dedicated cards that are mostly just engine. And then we of course have the Dear Servant. I think that this is a strong going second card as well. I know that it can get a starter, but it doesn't have to, right? If we go second, we can also just send an Entish or an Aggregator, something like that. And with Maximus, we can also just go, Garura, draw a card. Like it can just replace itself. So I think that this is a strong going second card as well. And then of course we have 2 Thrust and a Talents. And we have the Pot of Prosperity. And then I guess Colpie, maybe not. Maybe Colpie is not a good going second card right now. It's like decent against Malice, I think. Maybe. Not actually even sure. Not actually even sure how good this is. So maybe we just put this up here for now. I'm not sure how good it actually is going second in this format. But I am counting Pot of Prosperity. And of course, Wosu is strong going second, that's for sure. Nakatama is less strong, but it's still relevant. Like, a pop is still better than nothing most of the time. And so here we have, is that 15? Yeah, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. I feel like it's a good number, right? I know that Nidia 7, maybe, not the strongest going second card, but I think that the fact that it's a starter as well just makes it so unbelievably good in our deck. Maybe we just have too many starters. Like maybe we can cut Asagi. Maybe we don't need to run 3 Aramasa. But I'm also like, I like playing a lot of engine, to be honest. I don't really feel like it's too necessary to... Like, I still think these 15 are pretty strong, right? And I think I would maybe rather just go like a bit over 40 than cut the Aramasa, because it's the one card starter. Maybe you could cut the second Saji. I will say I don't really feel like cutting the second Amino, because I get bestialed, I get DD Crow so many times, and the second Amino is just very nice, especially in the Manas matchup, that's for sure. Yeah. So right now I feel like the weakest card is probably the enemy controllers. It's a good card, but like if you compare this to something like Fuvelas, it's like also even going first, right? You can take one of their things and catch them off guard, but unless you have another way to tribute that thing, they just get it back in the end phase, right? So you can maybe catch them off guard and take their play at a choke point. I won't say that it's completely bad, but if you compare that to something like Fuvelas, who might just win you the game if you go second. Of course, it doesn't almost nothing going first, but yeah. So maybe, you know, maybe the enemy controller should just be foolless. That could be the case. Also, the Book of Eclipse, it's not good against Melos, but I feel like it's good against almost all other decks right now. I feel like it's good against Rachel Mitsurugi. It should be decent against that deck at least. Maybe not crazy good, but still decent. Pretty good against the Blue Eyes as well, right? Should be. You just book their Spirit Dragons. Feel like it should be okay. Not entirely sure. Yeah. And I don't think we ever go down on the talents or the thrusts. You can play 3 copies of thrust. I just like 2 because it can be pretty bricky sometimes, because you never ever want to see 2 of it. And also, if you see 2 of it, you might just lose the game, to be honest, because it also not necessarily super helpful. It requires a bunch of setup. Like, you want something to bait out a monster effect, right? But if you have 2 of these, then you might not have a good way to bait out a monster effect. So I like playing 2 for now, to be honest. And then these 3, not cutting at all. So it's mostly these 6 here, I think. And then maybe also, you know, the second Saji might not be necessary. I feel bad about cutting the second Saji. It's also the case that if you draw this, and it's also like, it's just sometimes nice to have a normal summon, and you don't necessarily even need it to resolve. And then also, it's very nice to have one of these. It's just nice to have a Mitsurugi monster in your hand with prayers to play around draw. But maybe the second Saji is not necessary. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that, definitely. Could see that being the case. But yeah, so 3, 6, 9, 10, 3, 6, 9, 10, 24, and then with the 5th Haramasa, that's 25, and then 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Wait, so is this 39 cards? No, that can't be, right? Because I got 3. Yeah, it is 39, because I was playing with the 3rd Aramasa yesterday, the power. Yeah, okay, I remember. So this is 39, so we could play an extra, we could play the Duster in the main. Probably just take out the enemy controller, play for Velocus, probably. Yeah. And then try to cook with, try to pay attention to the meta in regards to super polymerization. And then I also need to test this Silhouette Rabbit, find out how many times on the draw do we actually end on a Ritual plus a level 4, so that it makes sense to make the Silhouette Rabbit. And then Alien Log is still, I have so many mixed feelings about it. I feel like it should be incorrect to play it, actually. I feel like I just want to play it because it's cool. I feel like that's the reason I keep playing it, and I don't think there's too many arguments to play it. I just feel like I'm playing it because it's cool. But yeah. Also, I think maybe I have the same relationship with the Nim controller, where I just think it's a cool card, so I don't want to cut it. That could definitely be the case. Yeah, I think that seems good. If we play 3 Fugalas in the main, then we also have clear cards to take out when we go first. Take out the 3 Fugas, put in some Salams probably, and then we also want some thrust targets, and we could maybe take out. At that point, I'd probably main the dust as well, just to have a thrust target you could also side in, or the plant balloon to side in. Then you'd have 3 Fovelas and a duster that you can side out. So that's 4 cards, so we could side in 3 Solemns and a thrust target. And that would, of course, that would bring us to 42. But maybe that's okay, like that could be fine. I don't think it's an issue in regards to status, it's just that my whole thing is that I want to see this prayers card to play around draw, so that's why I want to be at 40. But I don't think cutting Asaji might be correct, although I'm not really a fan of doing that, to be honest. I like having just the six small Mitsurugis. It's just nice to have bodies in the deck. You run out of these pretty fast anyway. It's nice to have some normal summon to follow up, and also just some redundancy. It's also like sometimes you draw the Saji and you still want to just like if you are under Parulia and you draw, like sometimes you just want to send the Saji from tributed from deck while you still have it in hand, just to play around Imperm and something like that. So having 2 is just nice. But yeah, I don't know. Could be 1, just maybe it should just be 1. Because it is the card that you summon all the time with Habakie, so yeah. But it is also the case that when I'm going second, I want to have cards that I can side out, and currently, like I want to be able to side in like 6 cards, for example, you know, if I'm playing against, if I'm like, yeah, I think that being able to side in up to 6 cards is pretty good. Maybe if I main the Fulas, I don't need to side in 6 cards, but the cards that I'm currently like taking out when I go second is just 1 of each of these. And the theory is that thrust kind of becomes a starter when you go second, because thrust can of course get pre-prep and also get Nadia 7, right? So the idea is that it's fine to take out some consistency pieces, because we get some status in the form of thrust, and we also get the extra draw. So yeah, so I think you can take out 1 Adamas and 1 Habaki most of the time, and then, you know, take out the Kobai most of the time. Some matchups is good, right? I don't know, like against the Fiendsmith and stuff like that. And then take out the Purification, and then it's like taking out the second Amino. It's not as crucial when you go second, I think, because they can of course still bestial it, but when you go second, the Kusanagi, well, I think that just most of the time, well, maybe it's still pretty good going second, actually. Maybe I shouldn't be siding this out. But then, of course, also siding out this Saji. So I have like 5 to 6 cards I can engine that I can side out when I go second. And of course right now with the current setup, that means that I can, you know, against the Malice, the Lanciers get sword with the Book of Clips, and then the Meows get in, and then just imagine that these are all fools. Then I want to side in these. Of course, if we play the Fuvelas in the main, then you maybe only would want to side in the Meows and swap out the Lanciers with Book of Eclipse. And in that case, maybe you just side out like these, but it's also, yeah, I don't know, because I do like the idea of just going up in non-engine, right? Because if I'm, yeah, because if I'm like right now swapping these out, then I still have the same 15 non-engine, but now I have also 6 extra, so that's 21, right? If I main the Fuvelas instead, and I go to 42, because I'm maining, I'm maining these two instead of enemy controllers, and then the third Fuvelas, I'm going to 42 instead of 41, and I have these. Then going second, I'm sighting in. So I still have one more non-engine in my main deck, and I'm playing 42 instead of 41. Yeah, so I have, I guess this is 16 right now, and then setting in here up to 22. Then if I played the full losses in my main, I would be having 17 non-engine, and I would be sighting only up to 20 instead of 22. So it's like, I feel like you still want to have a bunch of non-engine going second, especially the Chamis, because there's not really too much downside with swapping out, like these three, for example, these are all like status. Swapping these out with Meows is basically free, right? Because instead of drawing one of these, you just draw a Meows, but the Meows draws more cards. So you almost guaranteed draw into another starter anyway. So taking out engines for Chamis is just very strong, I think. It's a very good way to up your engine count, because they will almost always give you one draw. So they'll just replace itself, so you don't really lose too much consistency by doing this. So I also really like the idea of just, sighting in a ton of Chamis, right? And taking out the engine. But yeah. So yeah. But you could also, of course, side not play the second, side these out. Maybe if you main you could also have, could also do something like in the side deck have, and the thing is that I want to have 6 cards to side and going second, I think, against most decks. 6 to 5, because I do think that Kolbai might be good in some matchups. It should be in principle pretty good against Malice, right? It used to be, maybe it's not anymore. But so I want to side these 5 out almost all the time, and then optionally also the Kolbai. And I think that maybe you don't side out the second Hamino, to be honest. No, it seems correct, I think. And then just side in, so against, if you had the 4 losses in the main, you could side in Meows plus 2 other cards. If you assume Kolbai is still good going second, then of course you could just side in Meows plus 2 cards, and that would still make the Malice matchup so that you have 6 cards extra in a sense. Although I don't think Duster is too good against Malice. It's like sometimes good if they draw a bunch of cards and they can set some imperms and impulses and stuff like that. But maybe they don't set the impulse, and yeah, also they just draw and draw you. Maybe you actually have the cold buy in your deck going second no matter what, just because of draw. So maybe it is just 5 cards we're looking to take out. And in that case, you know, that could either be 3 Meows you're bringing or 3 Pirola you're bringing, or I'm not against just putting all of them in if you're playing against something like Memento or stuff like that, where you just need to see a Charmy no matter what, because they draw you into one another and you just need 2 anyway. So, you know, you could just play 2 generic good going second cards, but then I got in your side, but then I guess of course you would have even less space. So you could play like put the Duster in the side deck, to be honest, and just bring that in most of the time. And then you could take maybe some other normal spell to go second with. Like it could be a Evenly, maybe, or a Ultimate Slayer could also be, because I think we have all the targets for that. Or you can just play the third copy of Frost, actually, because that's also a card you can go side in going first. So maybe the third copy of Frost is actually pretty nice to have, as opposed to both are going first and are going second option. So maybe you main the 3 Fuvoloses. You have the 3 Perulias, 3 Meows in the side deck, and then you have 2, like a Duster and a Frost. So that would be 8 cards you can side in, going 8 cards for going second, where in most matchups, 5 of them, like I think that most decks that are strong against Meows are weak against Perulia and the other way around. So I think there's probably not a matchup where both Perulia and Meows is bad. Like, unless you're playing against, anti-meta, like Lab or Stun or something like that. At least I think so. I think that Perulia and Meows should cover most things. If we just assume that it does, then we would always have 5 cards to side in, going second, no matter what. And then we'd still have, because that would be 8 cards in the side deck for going second, so that would still be 7 cards for going first, which is, that's pretty nice. Not gonna lie, that's pretty nice, but 7 cards for going first, maybe that's a bit too much actually. No, it's like 3 Solemns plus a Frost target, I guess, plus some Frost targets. That's like 6 cards right there. So maybe we can still play maybe we could still play some draws. Maybe we only need, no, I don't know. But it's also the case that if we don't play the Duster in the main, we don't have a clear thing to side out going second, apart from the, oh, we could maybe also move the Nibiru to the side deck, although that's like a card you would side in going first and going second, so I usually want to have those cards in my main deck. Like Frost, for example, is like a card you side in both times, but it could still make sense with Frost, I think, to have the third copy of the Frost in the side deck, because you know, going first, you can side out Frost for a Fuvolas, going second, you can side up some engines for a Frost, and that would still be fine. But Nibiru, I feel like is a bit weird, because you sided in going first because of Gallant Granite, and then you also sided in going second because it's Nibiru and it's pretty good with Charmies, so I feel like it should maybe just be in the main deck, to be honest. But yeah, of course, the more cards the more space you have for going first in your side deck, you should also think of having more things to actually want to side out when you go first. And we don't really want to side the books out, not the triple cards, not the Nadir 7s, probably not these either, maybe the Wozu, not the Nibiru either, so it's pretty much just the Fugalosses you'd want to side out. So yeah, so maybe you could play draw as well. Maybe you can also just play, like, I feel like Slayer is pretty strong. Like, it should be pretty strong against Raicho as well. And it's very strong against Malice if you play the Boral Load package. So maybe that's a thing instead of super polymerization, honestly. You just do Slayer. Yeah, that could be. Just having Slayer synthesized deck. Should be also pretty strong against Blue Eyes, because we have the Herald. So we have a Synchro as well. Yeah. Also, of course, very strong against Fiendsmith. If they make Caesar, which they probably will. Strong against fusion decks as well, because we can send Garura. Yeah, so Slayer seems pretty free. Maybe we should just consider playing at least one copy of Slayer in the side deck, to be honest. Yeah. Interesting. I think I have been yapping for a long time, so maybe I'm just gonna end the video. I mean, no one is gonna listen to this anyway, but I think maybe I'll end the video here. And yeah, if you did watch it, thank you for watching it.